Now we're talking.
Kevin, delighted to have you here.
Thanks, man. Happy to be here. Happy to help.
We'll get started with the questions.
Yeah, let's go for it.
First one is, who would you say is your spirit animal?
Whoa, spirit animal. I've always felt kind of connected to like the beaver. I love the beaver. I feel like beavers are pretty, they're kind of dedicated to their work. They chipping away at that big old tree, and they make a little nest, and they kind of just chill. I think that's pretty apt for me. I think beavers are pretty. I've always loved beavers too. Slapping the tail in the water when they get afraid. That's kind of me. I'm just like a little, it's like smacking it. That's pretty me.
Did you play any sports growing up?
I played basketball and I played baseball a little bit. I wasn't very good at any of them. I'm not much of a sports guy. I love watching. I watch a lot of basketball now. I'm a Nets fan. And Yeah, I feel like I played at the age when all kids do, until you realize your body is not made to be an athlete, and that's when music kind of took over. I had the body of a musician, I think.
Wait, what's that Sopranos line? He didn't have the build of a varsity athlete.
Varsity athlete, not the makings of a varsity athlete. Yep, I love that. I've seen Sopranos like 10 times. It's so good.
What are your thoughts on taxidermy?
On taxidermy, it's funny. My dad is he's a dog trainer. He's a bird dog guy. So he's a hunter, and he hunts a lot of pheasant and quail. Still to this day, he goes out. He's kind of well respected in his field. He's a star amongst the hunters, and he has an office in their house that is full of like stuffed pheasants and foxes and things that he's collected, like little crocodile heads, things he's got over the years. I actually think I brought in a bunch of turtle shells and crocodile heads to like a show and tell when I was really young. I think I was like, second grade, and I brought in these little crocodile heads with like glass eyes, which are, they're all like, I don't know how they preserve them or whatever, but so I grew up around that stuff, and I don't know if I would own it myself. Just also because I have a dog. My dog's right here. And I don't know if he saw like a little fox stuffed or a stuffed like squirrel, I think he would lose his mind. He would like rip it to shreds. But I'm pro taxidermy, I guess you'd say. Not well, I'm not pro. I don't know if I'm neutral. I'm neutral about it. It's fine with me.
In your opinion, what's the worst deadly sin?
Worst deadly sin. Can you list them? Do you know them off the top of your head?
Gluttony, greed. Is jealousy one of
Probably
them?
jealousy. Is sloth one?
Yeah, sloth is another.
Sloth
Yeah.
is pretty bad. Sloth is like passively bad because you're just like not doing anything. And
Mm,
that's the ultimate sin, right? To be completely complacent, or to be completely uninvolved. I think
mm,
that's against what humanity is about. The other ones are such like they're rooted in like desire, which have their own bad qualities as well. But I feel like the desire to have is human, and you want to avoid coveting things from other people. But and obviously it's bad too. But I think sloth is just like you're just like so lazy that like nothing could get you. That's not great. To me, that's not very human. Or maybe it's very human. Maybe that's the point. But I think yeah, sloth is pretty bad. Yeah, sloth to me is just like to be just like lazy, like so lazy that you do nothing. That's not good. Do something. My
Do
take.
something. Dude.
That's my take. Yeah.
Which instrument do you wish you could play?
Um, I wish I could play. I would like to play the trumpet. I grew up playing woodwind instruments, so like the saxophone, a little bit of clarinet, um, and I play a lot of the stringed instruments. Uh, Brass instruments like the trumpet. I actually have a trumpet. I tried to play it. I did play it on an album of mine. I played one note, just like one sustained note that I could finally get, but such a specific, they call it your embouchure, your like lips, the strength of the lips in that way. It's very different than woodwinds. That would be a cool instrument to learn. I played the one time my dad gave me his old accordion, and I tried to play that once. I did that. I played it on this album I made called Stat, which is like a hospital musical I wrote. And man, accordions are heavy, and I'm like trying to pump it while play it, and it's tough. It's really tough. Um, I don't know how much I would use that though. I think trumpet, if I could really play the trumpet like Chet Baker style, like really smooth, I'd feel pretty cool to do that. Yeah.
Favorite Bob Dylan record?
Oh, that's a good question. Did you recognize my shirt? Is that why you asked?
No, I did. Oh shit.
Yeah, I actually saw Bob. I saw Bob a few nights ago. He
Whoa.
played in Camden actually, and I was one of the only people in my little area. I went with some friends, and they liked it enough. I was really felt moved by just hearing his voice in person and being around it. A lot of people around me, uh, a lot of like Allman Brothers, silver ponytail dads, right, with their arms crossed, like I don't hear blowing in the wind, or I don't know. They were upset, as many of Dylan's audiences can be. I was delighted to just hear his voice and kind of sounds weird, but to be in his like presence even from afar felt pretty powerful to me. Favorite Dylan record? I really love um well, Blood on the Tracks, I think, is just a classic of that period. I really love the 70s Dylan. I really love Shot of Love, one of them from his kind of his trilogy of kind of Christian albums. I really love Love and Theft from 2001, released on 9/11. And I really love his latest record, Rough and Rowdy Ways. I really love that record too. So there's four for you. But A Shot of Love is really up there. I think Blood on the Tracks might just be just one that just really hits on all cylinders. Um, but I really love Shot of Love too. I think that's a really underrated Dylan record.
Man. My personal would probably be Another Side because
Nice.
that's the first record I actually bought.
Classic.
And also very into Blonde on Blonde.
Yeah, Blonde on Blonde's great. Yeah. Blonde on Blonde took me a minute. I think that was the Dylan record that I grew up knowing. And I didn't really like Dylan growing up as a little kid. It didn't really click with me until much later. Honestly, till maybe my early to mid 20s did Bob click, and I really love that. I love that I didn't get it at first. I think it's the same way with certain movies that I've seen as a kid. I remember seeing Doctor Strangelove as a little kid, uh, and my uncle put it on for me by Kubrick, and he put it on for me, and I remember really, I was like 13. I really wanted to watch Dane Cook's special. I wanted to watch Dane Cook's comedy special. It's like, turn off this art movie. I want to watch Dane Cook. And now I watch Dr. Strangelove, and it's like one of the greatest films of all time. And it's like, it's just funny how time does that to you. It can kind of bring things around. That kind of thought process gives me hope for any artists who come out nowadays who maybe aren't getting what they deserve from the industry or from the audiences they're looking for. That I really do think that opinions can change and people can come around to things later. And there's a beauty in that. And like maybe something you liked at one point, your taste isn't there yet. And what that means to me is that it's not the creator's fault that like they did something wrong. It's in a weird way the audience's or the listener, the viewer's not fault, but it's their problem that they're not getting what they're doing. So things like that, I think Dylan was a good example of that for me and for a lot of people. That like it's not Dylan making something that isn't right for you. It's you're not on the wavelength that he's on in that moment. And I think that's something that, especially after you get out of college, we all kind of learn that like, oh, my taste of what I don't like isn't what defines me. Like where I've kind of drawn that line isn't really what defines my taste. My ability to like more than more than that is really what my taste is. So I think Dylan, when I finally got Dylan, it's an amazing thing. I think to me, Bob Dylan, it's like when you, like a lot of artists, I mean, any of those artists with massive catalogs, when you finally get them and you kind of put the key into the door and you're let into, a Disneyland of things, it's amazing because it's like, it all clicks. And it's funny. I think Blonde on Blonde as a kid, to me, and this is going to sound really mean, but Blonde on Blonde to me is the most of him doing the Dylan-esque voice, the like, everybody must, like that. It's doing that, right? And if you have any bit of pushback against that voice, like the way that that's been characterized so many times, that album is a tough pill to swallow for many because of that. It leans into that, right? And then, into the 70s, he starts to sing a little bit more. That's kind of where I got into it with the stuff where he started to sing a bit more. And then I get back to Blonde on Blonde and that makes sense suddenly. That it's like, oh, all of this is, he's in these phases and we're just along for the ride. So yeah, he's one of those guys that it took me a minute, but when I got into it, it was like, damn, it's like nothing else. It's nothing like nothing else.
It makes me laugh when I see clips of him being asked about like, like a Rolling Stone or like his hits, and he doesn't even like recall him writing them.
Yeah.
Like it was so long ago for him that he doesn't even remember his headspace or like how he even came up with those songs. It just
Yeah. I love that. I think it was like a 60 Minutes interview, that classic one where he talks about he's starting to quote I don't know, he's quoting one of his songs, I can't remember which one, but and he's reading the lyrics out loud and he's saying like, he said it like, how do you write that? Like he was impressed with himself obviously and saying how he thought it felt like a magical force, which I if anyone's familiar with my catalog, like not to compare myself to fucking Dylan, but like anyone that knows my catalog knows that there's like, I have a lot of music and it's not all diamonds, but there's times when I can experience a small, and I think any songwriter who's been practicing it for a long time can understand sometimes something just takes over and you're not writing it, you're listening to it, and you're almost it's like that guy in World War One or two where they're listening to the code and they're writing it down, they're hearing the clicks and they're decoding it, and they're listening while that very much, people talk about that a lot and they say it in a way that sometimes comes across a bit pretentious, like, oh, it was a godly force of, it was God writing this song. Like I it sounds crazy, but there are moments that any songwriter who's been at it for long enough will know that there are songs and times where it happens very quickly and you grab it as you hear it. And even David Lynch talks about that. He talks about the idea that when you have a good idea or a vision of an idea, obviously his, well, I mean, he was a musician as well, but his idea is more so, I think, in terms of his films and shows and stuff, that when you lose a good idea, it's one of the worst feelings because you need to grab it when it's there. And
That
he
it's
talks
like fishing.
very much, yeah, yeah, exactly. That's a perfect way to think of it. It's very much like that. And I think it is really frustrating when you let those go. And it's worth kind of riding that horse to like make sure you're capturing it as well as you can. They don't all come like that, and I think Dylan will be the first to say that it's not it's not every song, but there are, if you're at the craft long enough where your antennas are up, you're going to pick up some radio static every, or some radio signal every now and then. You're going to pick up
Mhm.
something that you didn't mean to, and I think that's that. Yeah, I think Dylan talking about that is he talks about it like same way Lennon talked about it as well, and McCartney. All the greats have talked about it the way that when you're constantly in a state of writing, you'll find that that muse or that signal or that voice from God, whatever it is, it does come to you in ways that is pretty magical. I think that's why people like that still do it, as long as they can, try to chase that feeling.
It's funny you said the word antenna right now because that's what I was thinking of. I don't know if it was like somebody that I personally know or maybe like a musician interview I saw. I really can't remember, but they pretty much, yeah, like describe the the songwriting process is like we're kind of like satellites and we're picking up these frequencies from our real life
Yeah,
and we transcribe it
yeah,
through the music.
yeah. That's very true. I mean, it makes you really think about how we have so many ways that we could get that idea down on paper or on our phone voice memo when you have it, and it makes you realize that like back in the days of the classical periods, like the ability for them to notate music out on sheet music so quickly and so accurately, when you imagine they're hearing these ideas in their head and they're hearing, and they don't have a voice memo app, they don't have, I'm sure they had shorthand of ways to make sure that they get it down, but we certainly have a lot more abilities to make sure that the ideas don't get away. And for them to make such complex ideas back then, uh, it's almost like looking at the classic art of the time when it's like, how did they make this with what they had? Any of the sculptures or the paintings are like, I can't believe they did this with what they had. It shows you the artistry of the time. But yeah, it's certainly now. It's like I do everything. I make every possible app that is for voice memos on my phone. I have it as like close to the home screen as I can, so I can never have to miss something. Uh, so it's actually I just got a new phone like a week ago. My old phone, my voice memos are so full that when I open the voice memo app, it crashes, and
Oh
so
wow.
that's why I had to get a new phone. It was like that for months. So I'd have a great idea or an idea, and I'd like have the guitar in my hand trying to play it over and over, and I'm like clicking the app because it's not loading, and I'm like trying to get it to record on the phone, and it's like I'm like trying not to forget the idea. So I got a newer phone, and now I have space, and it's not much of a problem. But that was a real problem for a while, like that threat of of forgetting it because I couldn't get it recorded quick enough.
If there was a playlist crafted for your funeral, what's the song that must be played?
Oh, okay, it's a good one. It's a good question. Um, Come Rain or Shine by Ray Charles, maybe. Come Rain or Come Shine, I think it's called. Uh the movie that's in the beginning, it's in the beginning of what's it called? Of the King of Comedy. Maybe that. Honestly, maybe like something Beach Boys, Don't Talk, Put My Hand on Your Shoulder,
Mm,
or Put Your Hand
banger.
on My Shoulder. Maybe something super old. Like my grandma loved this song, All of Me. It's a great jazz standard. Maybe something like that. Maybe some Chet Baker. I love, something off of Chet Baker sings, like I fall in love too easily. Maybe that song by Chet Baker. It'd be like sad, a lot of sad jazz, maybe, or stuff like that, like sad music like that. And then maybe like throw in uh like some Randy Newman song, like throw in or some Nilsson, something like some kind of funny
Mm,
piano song, like Simon and his Dancing Bear or something like that to lighten the mood a bit.
that's a banging playlist already.
That's a
I,
good
I feel
question.
I feel like I Fall in Love Too Easily is probably the most sampled song in like lo-fi hip hop.
Really, really, that makes sense. I love the Chet Baker one. Is just like so. It's just, I mean, he's just such a heartbreaker. That's a yeah, that would be stuff like that would be a good playlist for a funeral. We're probably moving in that world too. Playlist culture is so it's gonna go to our death. It's gonna go to us to our grave. The playlist culture. We're never going to escape it. Even in death, playlist culture takes there. That's very apt.
What's the last thing you Google searched?
Good question. I've been, I'm not a big guy of AI, but I've been like jokingly like Googling AI things. And let's see what I looked up. Um, some question about the Emmys. I was like, when is the Emmys? Which it was that day. It was, the Emmys were that day.
Do you believe in life after love?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I've lived it. I think we all have, right? We've all we've all lived life after love. I don't know if Cher did. Cher never had like a real healthy relationship with men, it seems. Uh, with Sonny Bono, I mean, I feel like didn't treat her right at all. We know that. So that poor girl, that powerful woman she deserves everything. She deserves Nicolas Cage. They should have been together after Moonstruck because they had real chemistry. Yeah, I believe it. I believe life after love. I mean, I think we're all living it in some way. We've all lived it at some point.
If if love is the answer, then what is the question?
Um, love is kind of like the closest thing we all have to a religion or a magic. I mean, maybe it's just chemistry in our monkey brain or some shit. I don't know. But I do think that like the feeling we get when we like see somebody on, you're walking on the street and you see somebody and you get that feeling or something. This is assuming you're a single man and you're or woman and you're out and about. Um, I think that it's really the answer to kind of why we're here in a way. I mean, it sounds silly, but I think that we're here to make each other feel wanted and make each other feel important and support each other. I mean, I think that the question is like why we're here. I think love is why we're here, and then keeping our species alive, I guess, is another part of it. Kind of the same answer.
Can one truly separate art from the artist?
Yes, yes, I do.
Is you do?
I do every day. I do every day. I love the work of so many people that are so canceled, which is not a great thing to admit. I I'm really I genuinely pride myself on my ability to separate the two. Um, like I this is very controversial. Obviously, I really enjoy Woody Allen movies. I really do. They make me they make me laugh and they make me feel like love is just all just like it's just like all the complexities of love, all uh, the like drama and all. It's like movies like that to me. His movies make me feel like you know what happens to all of us is what happens to all of us, and it's like life, like they're in like things that happen in his movies are things that happen to people I know, like, and it's like I watch his movies and they're very cathartic because it's like they're so funny and so light, and it kind of reminds me of that movie I think it's called Life is Beautiful, where it shows you, you know, I wouldn't say it makes light of the Holocaust, that movie, that Life is Beautiful with Benini, I think is his name. But it just shows you a sense of like, you know, life is just so complex, and love is so complex, and it's Woody's movies to me have a sense of even though they could be kind of bleak, they have such a sense of hope in what love can do, in how powerful it is. So his movies are great. You know, I'm not gonna lie, I've watched some Louis C.K. stand-up jokes in the last few months, and I laughed. I didn't like, you know, I didn't like, oh my god, I can't laugh at this. You know, it was funny. It was a funny joke. Um, Now I will say though, people like uh there are some people that, like, everybody draws the line somewhere, which I think is what I think is funny about this. Someone like who's the one that like when I can't relate to what they're doing, um it's tough. Like like Polanski, like Roman Polanski, what he did, right?
Mm.
Not a
Hmm.
good guy. I'm not saying Woody's also not a good guy, but I have a harder time maybe going to bat for someone like that, or even someone like, dare I say it, someone like Chris Brown, who like beat the crap out of Rihanna. I'm not going to go to a
Yeah.
Chris Brown concert, like, but I honestly don't feel his music has never really connected to me and felt like I got it. So I think we all, regardless of what anyone says, we all pick and choose instances that we separate. And
Hmm.
we all have our own exceptions. I mean, we've seen it with cancel culture, the way that people, the minute they started to cancel somebody that they liked, like you would see everybody tweet like, "Oh no, we're not going to cancel Adam Driver. Oh, we're not going to cancel Taylor." You know, and it's like there's always a line with somebody, you know. So it's,
Yeah.
but I you know, I wouldn't say I pride myself on separating it, but I think everybody, you know, Mozart, you know, like Beethoven, like the classics, like these were not good people. Our founding fathers were not good people. Uh, you know, no, I think it is though. This is the sorry, I know I'm going off on this. Uh, the thing I'll say though about it, I wouldn't go to Woody Allen for father advice. I wouldn't go to him for parenting. I wouldn't go to him for any advice, honestly. But that doesn't mean I
Hmm.
can't watch what he did and let the humanity of his art affect me. In the same way that if you're to go into a museum and see a beautiful painting, uh, like the fact that you were touched by that painting before you knew that you know that painter was a terrible murderer, you know, I think the art is what really affects you. So to me,
Hmm.
again, I wouldn't look to these human beings for advice, or look, I wouldn't look up to them as role models of the community. But it's tough to deny the feeling I get as an artist for another artist's work, because it's something that, to deny it is to deny everything that to me is what art is. Like, Woody Allen's movies don't belong to him; they belong to us. That's the
Hmm.
way I feel. And same thing with any of these musicians, any of these artists. Once their art is released, it's no longer theirs; it's ours. And so that's kind of how I feel about people. Again, there is exceptions for everybody, but I think I'm pretty good at, you know, watching a movie by a filmmaker who's a terrible person and not letting it bother me the whole time. I can find a way to suspend that and enjoy it. So
Very well said.
thank you.
Is there a band or artist that you used to listen to that makes you cringe now? Kind of like a guilty pleasure?
Yeah, I used to love Fall Out Boy in high school. I loved Fall Out Boy in high school. I thought they were so good. And I listen to them now and I'm like, they're not bad, but like, man, the pop punk voice has not aged tremendously well. I mean, the like whininess and the enunciation of it. And I think a lot of people still love it for the nostalgia, but like some of the voices they do, it's like so unnatural. I mean, talk about Dylan's voice. I mean, there's just like that's like another league. Like some of the ones it's like it's the way that they pronounce certain things. I mean, That being said, there's still stuff that bands like Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco, bands like that like they're not terrible. Like there's musicality there. There's talent there, but I can't listen to that stuff.
Would you say Spider-Man is your favorite superhero?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I've always connected with Spider-Man. I mean, he's just like, yeah, I mean, any superhero where his powers aren't uh maybe he wasn't born with it, like Superman. I don't mind Superman, but like I've always felt like Superman is tough because it's like, I mean, he's battling his own demons of his own whatever, his own identity and stuff. But like Spider-Man, it's like he was like a human first, and then he like became, he like got thrust into it in a way that is always so compelling in his story, and he was already really smart. So it's not like he's like, it's like it was like a mix of, it was like the perfect storm of things. I think Spider-Man's, yeah, still, Spider-Man's become such a like, like I mean, I
Mickey
grew up with,
Mouse.
yeah, like he's really like, they've like full on, like, yeah, they've like franchise Spider-Man to the point of it being like it's some like I felt like as a kid, not that it wasn't like that, but we had like the Tobey Maguire movie and stuff, and stuff before that even. But now Spider-Man is it's like it's crazy. I mean, it's like a whole nother level of fandom. People out in the street in full Spider-Man costumes and stuff, and it's different. But yeah, I think he's still the goat.
I only love Spider-Man until I play against him on Marvel Rivals. Then I fucking hate him.
Is he tough? Is he tough to beat on
Yeah,
Rivals?
if the yeah, most of the time the people that play as him are good, so they'll like just fucking they call it dive. So that means that they target you, like you're out in the back like trying to heal your team, and then they just
Yeah.
come and try to web you off the
Oh,
arena.
who's your main character in Rivals?
Right now it's Cloak and Dagger. I've been playing
Oh, cool.
healer,
That's
but
cool. I
it
don't
used
know
to
much about
be.
the game, but I know more. I used to read a lot of comic books as a kid, so I know them by name.
Oh, cool, cool. I actually took a break because I played competitive, and
Nice.
I kept getting D ranked because of crappy teammates. So I'm like, I gotta take a break. And luckily, the new skate game came out, so I jumped on that now.
Has that I watched the video of it. It's fun.
Yeah, man. I mean, like the graphics are kind of ass, and like there's not really a whole lot of just like story mode. It's more just like doing missions to try and get like free stuff, like
Yeah.
cosmetics. But other than that, it's pretty fun. Yeah, I
I used
like
to
it.
play I used to play Skate 2 when I was a kid on Xbox. That was my shit.
Nice.
Yeah. I've been playing Gears of War. I only have a Steam Deck, but I'm playing the new Gears of War. That's been
Oh,
fun.
nice.
That's been fun. Yeah, I game too much, man.
Did you ever did you ever risk it for the biscuit?
Did I risk it for the biscuit? You know, I'm I'm not much of a risk taker, honestly. I think there are things in my music that I do that, like, I'm like on my record Girl Cop, right? It's this record I made. Um, and this was probably 2015, 2016. The idea behind it was like uh, uh, a police themed musical, more akin to Columbo, something that's more fictionalized, not in any way like trying to like glorify the police, more of like a detective thing, right? But the detective is like a kid, and they all talk to the kid like they're an adult, like it's like kind of like it was funny in my head. So I made this kind of police musical, or a policical, or a copera. So I'm gonna say copera. uh,
Copra.
and so I recorded that in LA. I made that. I pitched it to some labels, and was at the time, this was again early in my career, and I was for some reason surprised that indie labels did not want a police themed musical in 2015 and 2016. Uh, and I put a lot of time into it. I worked on it for a long years. I worked on it. Now, obviously, the topic is one that's not the most favorable in terms of, at the time, even at the time. I mean, obviously in the mid 2010s, the police brutality stuff was getting out of hand. Obviously, much later it would even get further out of hand in like 2020. But it's funny. I often joke about. I mean, I took a really big swing on that album. I really put a lot of time and love and heart and thought into the story, into the music. It's probably my most ambitious record I've made, and a lot of my fans consider it to still be my best, which I appreciate them saying that. I mean, because it just took so much to make it. But it didn't materialize. And honestly, it kind of informed a lot of my thoughts on the industry, that nobody in a place of power got it or wanted to get it or wanted to take a risk on it. It's like a police themed Meatloaf album, or like Springsteen, right? It's like big epic, rock opera. And again, people that know my music put it up there. I think you maybe could put it in the S tier of RBG albums, maybe amongst a couple others. But that was a big swing I took. That while I don't think it didn't like not pay off, because again, I think I own it. It's mine. I own all the masters. People like it. I can do whatever I want with it. It was a bit of a risk, I think. Just it was a bit of an ambitious idea, and in hindsight, not that I would ever do this, but if say I did make something that was a very safe, maybe say like a country rock album, right, of the time, maybe a very lo-fi study beat chill album, right? The labels that were interested at the time in what I was doing, they might have been interested in working with me. Now that might have ended my whole career in the long run, maybe in terms of like all the bad stuff that just can happen being with a label that shelves you, owns your name. To get your masters back, you need to pay them $20,000, which I've heard happen to friends of mine, that you have to buy them back. So maybe not even maybe, I think in reality, the big risk of that ambitious record kept me from making something that had broader acceptable appeal, which would have got me on a label at the time, which would have possibly been, again, something that may have changed the trajectory of my catalog, my artistry, my opportunities. Maybe it would have been better, but I honestly think that what I've done and what I did has been able to keep me kind of keep me whole and keep, I have something like 78 releases on Bandcamp. Probably 25 or 30 of those are albums. Probably more at this point, 40 or 50 are albums. And I own all but one of them. And the one that I don't is the one that belongs to the label that I worked with for a very brief period. So that was my risk it moment. I think just big, thinking about, I didn't think, but it informs I think my career. Like I wasn't thinking about what the label wanted. I was thinking about what I wanted to hear, which I wanted to hear Born to Run with a concept, with a crazy concept. And so that's what I made. And it was certainly a risk. And I don't know if I got the biscuit, but I think I'm doing okay so far.
What do you think? What do you think was your reason behind like trying to pitch it to them?
Well, they expressed interest when they heard that I was recording. They heard that
Mm.
I was recording in LA. They heard that I was making something that was supposed to be very fresh. And they said, send it to us when it's done. And I had a few other, I also at the time, I did have a manager at the time. I don't have a manager now. I haven't for a long time now. At the time, I did have a small manager that was working for me that was essentially pitching the music around town. And yeah, it didn't bite. And I think it was I wouldn't say it was a reminder of like, they don't get it now, and that's not a bad thing, but it was certainly a feeling of at first kind of sadness, like, oh, I'm not doing the right thing. Over time, I really became, well, honestly, after the record, again, I made this record in probably 2015, and maybe even like 2014. I don't remember. It was pretty long time ago. And after nobody wanted it, I shelved it. And I shelved that record for probably close to 3, 4 years until eventually I thought, today's the day. I'm just going to put it on Bandcamp. And it really got a lot of steam, more than I had from other things I've done. Um, and it went really well, and it did well on other streaming later down the road. But it was really ambitious. And in hindsight, that label wanted something very accessible. They wanted something smooth, something easy, something broad. They didn't want a rock opera about the police. And they didn't want some concept album that a lot of it, I mean, some of the concept album, it was like a mash between like the Beach Boys and the Kinks. There were moments of a lot of, it was just like a classic rock potpourri, so to speak. And again, they wanted something clearly based on who that label, that I'm going to go unnamed, clearly who that label, that somewhat large indie label, who they wanted to sign, what they wanted from the music was something very smooth, very broad, very super chill and kind of lo-fi, but like poppy and catchy. And I make stuff like that every now and then nowadays, just because I make a little everything. But that record in particular was not what they wanted. And that was a nice wake up call, that thinking, you know what, I don't want to make what they want. I want to make what I want. And sometimes they might align, but I'm not in the business of appeasing those people. I'm in the business of making what I want to make. And my fans appreciate that about me. I think they appreciate that I don't pander. And that when they listen to a Rubber Band Gun record, they're listening to something that comes from my heart, and it's something that came straight from me. And it was not doctored by any, outside force or anything.
Oh yeah. Have you ever had a performance go wrong, and how did you handle the situation?
Yeah, I've had a bunch. I when I played with Rubber Band Gun, we did a tour in Pittsburgh, and or rather a Northeast tour. We did a show in Pittsburgh, and I love Pittsburgh as a city. This is nothing against Pittsburgh. We played at this one place, this bar upstairs, which is not there anymore. We played at this club, and we traveled all the way from Jersey, which, Jersey to Pittsburgh doesn't sound like it's far, but it is far. It was like 6 hours, I think. It was far because Pennsylvania is big, it's wide. And getting from, you think like, because Philly is within an hour of where I'm at and where I was in Jersey. Pittsburgh is like another 5 hours through PA or something. It's crazy. And we went through a crazy storm. We went through hell to get there. So we get there. It's me and a few other bands that we're touring with, little DIY tour. And we're playing late, and there's nobody there. There's like 6, 7 people there, maybe, that just wandered in. Nobody's there. And we're playing, and I brought a little cassette machine to record all the bands that we brought. There's 3 little bands we toured with, and my band's going on last, and we're going, and um we're playing our set, and I realized that I need to flip the tape on the cassette, or I need to put a new tape in. So I said, "Hold on, guys, sorry, I just got to put a new tape in." I tell that. The sound guy comes on the mic and says into the PA and into my monitor, "I'm not here to record your fucking live album." He says that on stage to me, or not, or rather through his mic. And man, I was so mad. We played our last song after that, and the whole thing, I kept like, I would never do this again. This was probably, I was like 25 maybe, and I'm 33 now. um I was like yelling through the song, and adding his name into the song. I was like Mike, fucking Mike. Like I was like saying his name, like yelling his name into the, like during the song. Like, how do you like this fucking Mike? You like this song? Like I was being an asshole back to him, because I was like, that was so uncalled for. I've never had any sound person like say something like that in the middle of a show. And I mean, no one was there, so it wasn't a big deal. But I was so mad, and that was like my one and only meltdown I've ever had on stage. I've had shows where like the sound isn't great and I'm struggling to hear. I've never had a show where the sound guy is like, yeah, being like that, like saying, like cussing into your monitor and into the PA. So that was like the memory I have. And honestly, everybody has a story like that in a way that has been in the industry for a while, where like you got into an argument with somebody at the venue or something where it happens. I'm always trying to be so nice to people at the venue because I know how hard that job can be. And I've toured in rock bands where, from big venues to small venues, and I know how much time it takes to do what they do and how much work. But to me, in the same way that maybe like a stand-up comedian, if you get a heckler, like that's your
Mm,
time, right? That's your time up there. And it's like there's a clear indicator when the person in the crowd, or in this case, the person who was working there, has zero respect for the performer. There's a time and place for that, right? And so that was a time when it was a solid reminder to, in hindsight, to not do that again if something like that happens, but also that like, yeah, that shit is like it really boiled my blood at the time. For him to do that was really disrespectful. So yeah, that was my little meltdown story.
sounds unnecessary too. Like what? Why was he being a dick for?
I know it was. I think he was mad because it was a late night, and no one was really there, which
Mm,
happens. Also,
yeah.
I found out later that bar was a metal bar. So, and
Oh.
we played like rock, classic rock. So they
Ah,
probably didn't love the fact that we didn't have, shredding Marshall stacks and, Zach Wild vibe. We were a little bit more like the Stones or something. We were a little more rock and roll, and so
yeah.
he was probably just having a bad time. I also remember he was watching like a hockey game on his iPad the whole night. And so maybe he was mad that like his team was losing. Maybe he was mad that the Penguins were losing or something. But yeah, that guy, that place is not there anymore. And besides that, the venue was nice. It was a nice stage. It just, that guy was so mad, and I'm just like, bro, I didn't make you get this job. And again, we traveled so far. We traveled from
Damn.
like for that one show, we lost so much money because also the tolls to get to Pittsburgh are expensive, plus the gas. We lost a lot of money to play for nobody. So I was like, I'm like, I was going to do the Denzel thing. Like, I'm leaving here with something. Like, I'm leaving here with something. And so that was going to be the live mute. Like, I brought the cassette recorder. So I'm thinking, okay,
You,
we'll have a live out. Instead,
so
I
he
got cussed out on stage.
took his iPad. You should have taken his iPad.
I should have. I should have left with his iPad. That's so true.
Using your career as an example, someone with an extensive catalog, what would you say is important in order to keep ideas fresh and not feeling you've run out of things to sing about?
Yeah, I think, kind of tying back to what I said before, like not trying to tell your whole life story in a song. You know, think about little incidents to write about. Think about little situations. Think about little relationships in movies. Like you can write a song about a movie you just saw, like inspired maybe by two characters that didn't connect, or there's so many things. I find that you know, you have to feed your creativity with other people's creativity in another way. And that's kind of goes back to what I find about Bob Dylan and tradition. Um, you know, Joni Mitchell calls him the greatest plagiarist of all time. In a weird way, I call that being talented. I mean, it sounds messed up, but it's like the ability for you to feed off of inspiration and regurgitate it is not easy. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that the ability to speak something so true with your music when it's something that was said before is also very difficult. And it's like, I have a hard time imagining someone like Dylan going through so many shifts if he didn't have so many things that could inspire him from other artists, and working with other musicians that maybe inspired him, or hearing records that inspired him. I think, when I hear something, when I uncover some band from whenever that I hadn't heard, it really does inspire me to think I want to try to do my version of that. And often what I'll do is I'll listen to something, um, an old song or something, and I'll listen to it just enough that I could get the spirit of it inside of me, but I won't
Mm,
learn it. And then I will play my version of that. Almost like it's almost like trying to like memorize a speech and then like without trying to memorize it, and then you try to give that speech again. It's going to be your speech unless you memorize it word for word. So the ability to almost grab the phantom of a song or the ghost of a song or even the ghost of like a band or a decade or a genre and know how to put that into your own engine tank is something that I
mm,
think um, too many people are afraid of copying that they don't want to even touch that world. Where again, we hear so many great artists. I mean, McCartney, some one of his greatest songs is "Let Me Roll It," and that was him trying to do a Lennon song as a joke. Um,
mm,
and a lot of his songs, you'll read about how he wrote them, and it's like he was inspired by some other thing that you wouldn't think, maybe Canned Heat or Howlin' Wolf. And it was his version of doing that that again, you would as a listener, you might pick up on it. You might be like, oh, that kind of sounds like, a Steve Winwood song or something, right? But at the end of the day, it's not it's always going to be his. And I, for the lack of a better example, I always do thinking about a quote by John Mayer, who says, you know, I now think I don't think he does this well. This what he's describing personally. I think he's had a couple records that he has, but I don't think he's the great example of this artist because I don't think he's really a genre shifting guy.
mm.
But what his quote is that it's your failure to sound like your heroes that makes you sound like yourself. And I
That's
think
good.
that's really important. I think if you try to sound like um, Todd Rundgren, you're going to fail. You're not going to sound as good as Todd Rundgren, or you're not going to sound like him. You will always sound like yourself. But I think the ability and effort and attempt really
Mm.
will make you sound like you. And it will make you sound like you in ways that you hadn't prior to that. So if I think to myself, okay, I want to make a record that reminds me of Peter Gabriel, right? My attempt at that is not going, and if it does, if I sound as good as Peter Gabriel, hell, mission accomplished. But that doesn't happen. And because I'm not Peter Gabriel, and you know, like Brian Eno's attempt at sounding like uh, you know, what's that? What's his name? The minimalist guy. I can't remember his name. Damn it. To sound like the classic people before him is what was able to
Mm.
make him sound like himself. And I think we don't even realize a lot of times how often our heroes are, for lack of a better word, ripping off somebody they love. But again, music is such that it's tradition, it's passed down. It's not something that we reinvent. We're all working within the same constraints for the most part. So I think, trying to sound like Fleetwood Mac, yeah, people might say this kind of sounds like Fleetwood Mac. That's never going to be a problem. And if it is a problem, if you rip off Landslide to a T and Stevie Nicks comes after you in the lawsuit, yeah, you got a problem. But also, you might have a situation where if your song was so big that it got Stevie Nicks' attention, well, you're doing something right, So it's like I don't advocate for ripping off people's songs. What I do advocate for is to finding a
Make
way
it your own.
to yeah make things your own and find your voice through other people's masks. Wear someone else's masks, but speak your words. And I think
Nice.
that's something that people are too afraid of that to even try because they don't want to get a Robin Thicke scenario or like they don't want Marvin Gaye estate coming out of them, which is very understandable. But I think we're moving into a world where, frankly, and we think about copyrights, I think we're moving into a place where we're going to see less human on human copyright and more human on AI copyright. More people getting into the court system to say, hey, that AI song you made is actually ripping off my song, which I think is valid, because I think that's where I think we're living in, where we're going to start seeing that in court systems, where intellectual property is being infringed upon by AI. Where again, I don't think we're going to see quite as much pop music going after each other the way that, say, like Tom Petty went after the Strokes, or like or like Marvin Gaye going after Ed Sheeran, right? Like I don't think we're going to see quite as much of that. I think we're going to see the other way, us going after the people making AI and making the AI music and realizing that, hey, this AI song is without my consent, it's ripping off this, which I think is a whole nother gray area that I don't even really know how to feel about. It's like it's complex. But
I
yeah,
think I think that's a little valid though. Like
yeah,
a little valid when like an AI rips off a song that you yourself made.
yeah.
I don't know. Like
No, I agree. I think it's tough. I was at actually no, instead I was at a wedding. I was actually at a funeral, and I was debating, not debating. I was discussing with a family friend who works in AI about AI in art, and they didn't have any opinions on AI in art. They use AI for finance. They're all there, and how AI is like writing code for them, all this stuff. My
mm,
big thing that I've realized, and I mentioned to him, was that to me, AI in making music is tough because AI music is just taking on everything that's done, which is not incredibly different from what I was preaching before about how music is tradition and how we should be using music that's inspires us. That's a similar sentiment where we're taking music that was made and we're using it to inform the future. But I think that the human ability to unknowingly push ahead, even by taking things that had happened in the past, is creating a future of music into a way that AI makes its own future music. And to me, they're very separate. They're both making things that maybe have never been done. And because I think anytime anyone makes a song ever, it's never been done like that. Actually, I saw this video of Neil deGrasse Tyson, which a pretty funny video. He's speaking up on music, and he was saying that, um, if you were to erase all science textbooks, you can erase all of it, it would come back exactly the same with the laws that we know of physics, of gravity, all these things. If you were to erase all of music, it could never be done exactly the same again. It's something that is very much not very much personalized, and every song is different, even if it's the same thing. So knowing that art will always evolve and change, even if it's AI, even if it's human. But I do think that human music is going to be what is informing the AI, and it's always going to have a step ahead and always going to have, I mean, ideally many steps ahead.
mhm.
But it's always going to be ahead of the curve because what AI is doing is copying humans. And so stuff like that kind of makes me feel that, as much of a threat as it can be, it's always kind of chasing the coattails of real people. And it might do things that are interesting, but I think that the tradition of music and the ability for us to take things that we like and make new things, which again is what AI is kind of doing, humans are where the heart of it all really is. So, my advice to people is always don't be afraid of, don't be afraid of using influences and wearing them closer than you think and letting them inform
Right.
you.
Do have some notes on Record Deal with God that I wanted
Yeah,
to.
please.
So, thanks again for letting me have an early listen to the record. It's amazing, man.
Thank you.
And I um I have a few notes on certain songs and in like in we live in a world of comparison and I don't like to so much compare artists with others, but I kind of just do like, oh, hey, this reminds me of this,
Yeah.
this reminds me of that, So there's a few songs on here that I got vibes of, like on Independence Day. That sounded like a Kinks song to me, you
Heck
know.
yeah. I love the Kinks. I love the Kinks. Yeah, Kinks are one of my favorite groups. They're a great band that's like simultaneously underrated and like I wouldn't say overrated, but they're like this weird mix where people like know them and they know their hits, but there's just so much to dig into. I mean, they're kind of like Dylan in that way too, where it's like they're just there's so many phases, so many versions. Um, yeah, and the Kinks have been an endless inspirational source. I don't. It's funny. The Kinks are so like in my like heart that I don't even like listen to them as like inspiration, but they just kind of
Mhm.
come out through a lot of my albums because they were important at a very seminal time for me. So they kind of just like their sounds sometimes just if I'm making rock music, their sounds just kind of come out whether it's Lola level or whether it's the old or whether it's some of the later or the late 70s stuff. I mean, they're so talented.
Painting sounded well, it reminds me of Harry Nilsson.
I get that. Yeah, yeah. A big influence for the record too was Ry Cooder, who's a really great guitar player, amazing musician, one of the most underrated guitar players of all time. I mean, he was incapable of a guitar cliche. He's just probably one of the most talented guys ever on the axe, and he was a big influence for this record. The way that he blended certain genres together through his music with blues, with uh, certain gospely notes of rock, and also just the way that he arranged stuff so simply, but also so musically. I don't think I got anywhere close to what he does so well, but again, it's what I said before. It's kind of my attempt at my failure that could make it sound interesting. Nielsen is also kind of like the Kinks, another one where it's like I don't find myself even like listening to him as much anymore because of how much I've listened to him in the past. Nilsson, also Newman, Rundgren. I mean, these guys have really found their way into my blood in ways that they're kind of in the Rubber Band Gun DNA. I mean, you go back to the Girl Cop album I was talking about, and there's a lot on there that's very Nilsson, very Beach Boys, very Newman, Randy Newman, that kind of whole period. Um, and I'm not even really when I'm making it, I'm not even really thinking about, oh, it's got to sound like this. But it'll just kind of start to happen, and I just don't stop it, unless it's become so egregious that it becomes like a problem. If it feels like it's still me, then I just let it happen, and I don't stop the train. I kind of just let it play out. And I have enough songs of mine that I don't worry about what this one song might feel like to anyone. Because if someone says they don't like something or it sounds blah blah blah, I'll be like, well, you got 1,000 more you can listen to. You might like because I really do believe with Rubber Band Gun, there is one song in my catalog that anyone would like. They might have to dig to find it, but I think no matter what you like, there is one song in my catalog that if you heard that and didn't know it was me, you would like it. Uh, that kind of keeps me making stuff. It's just like the knowledge that anyone's taste could be something that, you know, that we could strike with music. Oh my God, why is it zooming in? Did you see that? I think I had,
Yeah.
I think I've had the auto zoom thing on this whole time. Also, I have something called AI Companion.
If a stranger came up to you and you would try to pitch your music to them, how would you describe your sound?
I think I make rock and roll, and I think that it it to me my music has the like variety that you might find in like some old comics or something. I don't know. They're like where you could find a sort of short life and a short look in each one, each record. I usually when people ask me what genre, I mean, I've done, I did a jazz record, I've done a blues record, I've done noise albums, I've done albums that are very much acoustic pop. I've done albums that are power pop. I've done, the list kind of goes on and on. I don't think I've really struck into like hardcore yet, or I haven't done classical yet. I've done things that I've done like Broadway style show tunes with Rubber Band Gun, and then it's all under Rubber Band Gun's name. You know, all these can be found. I've done stuff that's very. I've done a lot of soul songs, a lot of old stuff. I haven't done pop punk. Never say never though. It's people ask me. I think I tend to say rock and roll, maybe indie rock, just because
Yeah.
I am indie rock. Like I think I'm what I want indie rock to be.
Or just keeping it simple to like the normie ears or like people that aren't, too familiar with all the subgenres. I mean, there's fucking endless.
It's
But yeah, I also heard a bit of Alex Chilton in a few songs. Number six, Baby's Gonna Find Out reminded me of Johnny Thunders too in a way.
hell yeah, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love power pop. I love Big Star. That's a good shout for sure. It's funny. One of my friends jokingly was like, based on that song, jokingly, obviously, was like, "Oh, Kevin's on heroin now." I'm like, that's not right. But I think it was just saying. 'Cause I think it's kind of got a little bit of a Stooges vibe, I guess you could say. It's certainly
Mm.
a lot of the songs on this record, this new record, are kind of older, and for me, like like in 2024. And I made this record over the course of the last year. A lot of the stuff has been either sat on for a while and kind of I dusted it off a bit and made it kind of fit with this, um, or it was something I made in the last few months. But usually, like I said before, my records are a little bit quicker, a little bit more of the window that I'm working in. So this album again, it's I had the idea around this time last year for the name of the record, and a general one of the big influences that, again, this is me failing to sound like this. I really wanted to make a record like the band Little Feat. I really love the band Little Feat. Great rock band, super crazy musicians in it in the '70s. And I didn't make anything like Little Feat. But again, it was my like my idea, and this is what I tell people, like, if you have a vision like this, either you hit it and you're kind of happy, or you don't hit it but you make something true to yourself and you're kind of happy. So it's like it's people ask me how many I make so many things. It's I just keep throwing shit at the dartboard, and like,
Yeah.
because I've done it so much, I've learned how to at least make it on the board, make it
Mhm.
on it's on there somewhere. It might not be bullseyes, but I keep throwing it enough that I'm not hitting the wall anymore. I'm getting it on the board.
How do you avoid feeling like burnout when you work on music so much daily?
Well, yeah, a problem I do have is like if I'm working on a mix or a master for an artist, or recording a band all day. Say we work from noon to 7. Yeah, by 8 p.m. I'd like to sit and play a little bit of Mario or something, right? Like I want to, or I want to watch a movie. That could be a tough thing because, I mean, in the same stretch, if I was to do that, say I was to work a construction job and do that. Come on, Jonesy, being a little jerk. Say I was to work a construction job and it was the same thing. I would come home at whatever 8 o'clock at night being exhausted. I might not want to pick up the guitar. I might be too tired. So, in the same sense, not that I'm comparing my work to construction in terms of strenuous activities, but I more mean that, like, in terms of the burnout and just not feeling necessarily creative, I really do have to find a way to be creative in my downtime. And
Mm.
one of those things as well is to, like I said before, keep putting fuel in the tank. Like even though I'm done, maybe I listen to music all day, listen to a band. Maybe just like go on your phone or your streaming service or in your record collection or something. Maybe just like look for something that might be something you can maybe take a note of for later. Like, oh, I really like the way that this album looks. Maybe I'll take a picture. Like think little things that will like spark the inspiration that keeps you moving. I think that's really important. Like taking little notes, making little plans, having a little notebook where you think, okay, maybe this next record is going to be called blah blah blah. Maybe it's going to be called you know, I don't know, squirrel. You know, it's a squirrel. Oh my god, I said squirrel and he freaked out. He hates squirrels. He hates squirrels.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, what would I do that about? Would it be very nut centric? Would it be very tree centric? You know, it's like and stupid shit like that. That I have so many notebooks filled up with just like little stuff like that. That's just like trying to find something that could give me like enemies going crazy. Yeah, and there's no squirrel, no squirrel. Sorry, sorry. Um, and trying to find a way to keep yourself moving is like it could be tough. It could be tough. But again, I think it's about taking like as much effort as you spend in writing and practicing. You need to keep your tank full in terms of inspiration with other artists, with non-musical things, movies, books, paintings. One thing I do a lot that I tell people as an advice when they're having trouble with lyrics is something I learned from a couple of friends a long time ago, which is that you know if you watch a lot of movies, write down dialogue from movies that you think speaks to you, even a little line. I
Yeah.
have an album I made a few years ago called "Shut Up and Deal," and that album name came from the last line of my favorite movie called The Apartment. The last line of that movie is she says to him, "Shut up and deal." They're playing cards, and that name kind of stuck with me, and that informed that whole record's name and some of the direction of it. And other times I'll find little lines from movies and I'll write them in my notepad, and then later on I might pull up one of those as a lyric to start with for a song, and it might inform. You know, I have a whole thing in my phone that's just like lines from movies that are just like good lines that I think might start a song. Because for a lot of people, a problem they have with writing music, and the same thing for screenwriting or for writing a book, is the empty page. It could be so intimidating to look at like an
Hmm.
empty page and like, how do I start?
Yeah.
Um, and what I found with that is put anything down, because anything can be made better. You can't make nothing better. You know, you can't make a blank page better. You can make anything you do better. So it's
Yeah.
about putting something down, even like purposefully putting down the stupidest, worst thing you can think of on an empty page can be made into something tremendous.
This next song that I was gonna mention, and I think it might be my favorite one on the record, and it has a little sad vibe to it, but I keep replaying it because even though I love the full band sound and love hearing uh you know just people jamming and having a good time,
Yeah.
uh I also just have like a soft spot for you know an artist that can just get vulnerable on just the guitar, and footballs is that for me,
I had a feeling you'd say that. Yeah, I had a feeling you'd say that. That's definitely on the like darker side of the record. Just in terms of the fidelity, maybe, or just the sounds of it. But yeah, that's funny enough. That's the oldest one on the record. That was
Oh.
the first song I wrote on the record. I wrote that like last September, which again is pretty rare for me to sit on something that long. But and I, you know, it's funny. I recorded that guitar last November. I did the vocals for this one, I think last week. So but the lyrics were the same that I wrote last year. I just redid the vocals with a voice that was a little bit more me now, which was funny because I had an old recording of me singing it from last year, and it just didn't really feel like it was me now. And so I did a kind of a rare thing where I kind of updated the vocal and just did it more in a way that I sing in 2025. And
Wow.
it really felt like it rang a little more true and it fit the album a little more. But yeah, that was one of the first ones I did. And that, you know, I think a lot of the songs I've made on the record since then have really broadened into different genres. Like that, like Footballs is not much of a rock and roller. Some people were saying it's almost like not shoegaze, but that it was in a much darker world than say like, you know, painting or something like that. That's a little bit more
Mhm.
playful. But yeah, I find that that one really made a difference. Again, that one almost didn't make the cut either. I had about 8, 9 songs 2 months ago that I had written that were the ones that you would listen to on this record and kind of expect. Um,
Mm.
like it was like Thunder is a Knock, Painting, Eyes Above, Golden Ideals, Pay to Play, stuff like that. Then I think I added, funny enough, very late in the game, I added Independence Day. I added Footballs. I added I think Girlfriend's House, and I think maybe one more. I don't remember what the other one was, but I added one more too that wasn't originally there. Um,
Mm.
and again, they were those more so those three I just mentioned were recorded more so last year. But I listened to them again, and one of my collaborators, one of my friends, Sam Sullivan, who's a great songwriter as well, he told me that these couldn't be more fitting, both lyrically
Mm.
and genre and sound. I mean, in terms of the because the obviously the name Record Deal with God is connecting the two dots that this album really is conceptually about, which is the music industry as it is, and kind of a sort of faith. And you could put a lot of connections between the two, between a sort of religion and this sort of algorithmic industry we're in, and the way that we kind of bow to it and the way that we kind of worship it. And I think there's a lot of things about it, as far as greed, as far as uh you know rights that we have, as far as ego, and the sense of this almighty power watching us both career wise and both with actual faith in God. And I feel like there's an amount of which we kind of connect the two without realizing it. So the name also just kind of felt fitting, the sound of it. That's one place I tend to start with my albums, is with a good name tends to be something that I also really play off of as I make more of it. Um, but yeah, I'm super happy with the album. It's funny. It's like this is one again where it's a rare. There's not many I've done where I work on it for more than say 5, 6 months. Sometimes I'll do it in a month, and sometimes I'll do it in a weekend. I've done many records in a weekend, and I'll do it all,
Yeah.
and then it's out. This is another one. It's kind of a rare, long, slow cook, but I'm glad it's finally going to be out tonight. So
And I'm glad that that song didn't get excluded because it is a nice standalone.
mm,
And yeah, the guitar tone is great. Your
thank
vocal
you,
performance is great, man.
thank you so much.
Yours and mine, I was curious, was that a nylon guitar on it or
That was a parlor guitar actually. So it's a small body. I bought in the Jersey Pine Barrens a long time ago. It's a little crappy little guitar. I think it's from the 70s, this little guitar. But it's a parlor guitar. So it's steel stringed, but it's very small scale. And it's got kind of a tiny neck. That song actually, this was another thing that I have usually not done. That song was a single that is actually on streaming now, that came out in 2023. So that's an old song of mine that actually might have been the other one that I was trying to think of, that it wasn't initially going to make the cut. When I listened back to it, it's rare that I'll kind of bring back an old song like that if it didn't have a home. But it
Mhm.
did have a similar inspiration at the time as the inspiration of this one, rooted in a bit of the blues, a bit of rock and roll, classic stuff, a bit in the southern world. Obviously, I think this record has a little bit of roots in the South, a little bit, not like overly, but there's definitely some southern roots in parts of this album. That song did as well. And I found that the lyrics to that song, Yours and Mine, really related to the music industry, related to the concept of, as I said before, of rights, of related to almost religion, you can interpret it as. I don't really know when I was writing it what I was, as for a lot of the songs that I've done, I'm not always entirely sure what I mean by what I say, but
Yeah.
I just trust it. And if it feels right to sing it, I just kind of go with it. And if I had a nickel for every time that years down the road, I realized, oh, I was writing about that, or I was writing about that person and I didn't know it, or maybe I was kind of. It's happened so many times, man. And I think that's what's beautiful about music. It doesn't have to be about us or about our life, but it shines through in ways that
Mm.
become clear later down the road as you get farther from it. Obviously, not to diss the modern listener, but our attentions are such that we don't always find ourselves really getting immersed in a song maybe the way we should, especially in the playlist culture where it's just like bang bang bang, new. We don't really sit and really digest it the way we maybe should. But I
Mm.
think as a writer, there is a responsibility to try to give our audiences and listeners that kind of feeling and that kind of moment where they can really get um, a sense of uh, like same way in a movie. With when you watch a movie and if your character didn't do anything, like what am I watching? It's like I
How
I,
can you relate?
I want. What'd you say?
Like, how can you relate?
Yeah, exactly. And is like, why am I listening to this narrator if they don't even seem to be learning anything from their own words? Like, we don't necessarily always need to hear a song where someone changes by the end of it, but I think that there's something to be said for a song that, yeah, when it gets to the bridge, we're hearing that that voice like start to have realizations that make us feel something. Or
Mm.
it doesn't always need to be like it dawned on them at the bridge, but there's an emotion that comes from that sort of moment. And there's a really great example of a song I can't remember where the bridge is, funny. It honestly might even be okay. This is so funny. It might even be Jimmy Buffett, like the example I'm thinking of. It might be Jimmy Buffett, who's like obviously not. I mean, I think Jimmy Buffett was a great songwriter. R.I.P. the Buff, but maybe not the most golden example of like Dylan level songwriting. But I think the example might have been something where it was like by the end of it, it was like, oh, it's it was like what's it's Margaritaville. It's Margaritaville. It's where every time, like when you look at it, like this is dumb. This is dumb. I mean, this is maybe not the great example, but like you look at Margaritaville's lyrics. I'm looking at it right here, and you look at the lyrics and you see the tag of everything. Some people claim that there's a woman to blame, but I know it's nobody's fault. Right? That's the first chorus. Second chorus. Some people claim there's a woman to blame. Now I think, hell, it could be my fault. Next one. Some people claim there's a woman to blame, but I know it's my own damn fault. So we see this movement, right? That's not a bridge, but we see the way that they're realizing as the song goes that it's their fault. And I think that level of songwriting is really special, where it's like you can find a sort of, I think another example is Dylan's Most of the Time. A great song by Dylan, Most of the Time, where in the same sense he has that's the tag of his song, right? Like most of the time. And the lead up to it, is I know we're probably like the lead up to it with this, like if I'm looking at it, like I didn't even notice she's gone most of the time, right? That's like the tag. Or the
Mm.
next one, I can survive, I can endure, I don't even think about her most of the time, right? Or the next one, uh, uh, I can smile and I can smile in the face of mankind. Don't even remember what her lips felt like on mine most of the time,
Wow.
right? There's like it always comes down to that, like the way that he ends up. And then the last one, I don't compromise. I don't pretend. I don't even care if I ever see her again most of the time, right? And the most of the line, the most of the line, most of the time, most of the time that line, like when it comes, you're what's great about that song is that there are times where you think that line is coming most of the time, but it doesn't. And then when it comes,
Yeah.
it's like, oh fuck, he still thinks about her. But there's other things that he doesn't think about. So that kind of songwriting to me, where you can really feel the narrator saying something and playing with the refrain, playing with the words. Again, I think the bridge is a point that I felt like could always do that. It can have that sort of momentum where you get to the bridge, there's something to be reflected on. Funny enough, I think the two versions I just mentioned are versions that I learned in music school that would be called verse refrain, where you're essentially it's the last line of a section that keeps evolving, and the use of it
Whoa.
can change. So that's what we call essentially a verse refrain. That's the song form for those two examples. The bridge examples is not really. There's another example I'm thinking of for the bridge, but that's another thing. Both similar in sentiment, though, that I think that the idea is you're growing as the song moves, and the listener, you're kind of following that protagonist or narrator, and you're hearing as they develop and as they change. So I think that's something that is to me is a really strong songwriting tool that I'd love to hear in more music, frankly.
It's a great practice of self-awareness.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And again, it's a good form because if you know how to do that, it's the same thing with the blank page. If you know that's what you want to do, you can really shoot to find the refrain, and everything else can kind of be the orbit around that. Where one, it's like knowing your theme ahead of time, in a way that again, knowing these different styles of songs is also one of the reasons why I'm able to make so much music, is because I can think about it in addition to inspiration. I can think about it in terms of song form. I can think, okay, I want a song where there's a big chorus. I want a song where maybe it's just a tag at the end of the verse that has a hook to it, has a nice catchy hook. It could be a song where there's no form, where it's just one, it's like Velvet Underground, where it's just like one chord and just rambling over it. There could be a lot of ways to go about it. So knowing that is also helpful to like figure out how to make albums very quickly.
Girlfriend's House sounded like Strokes to me.
I can see that. I can see that. That was I was inspired by some weird stuff for that one. That one and the dotted line were a little bit weirder, and that's why they're kind of a little more on the B side, a little bit stranger.
Yeah, the dotted line, your falsetto vocals kind of reminded me of Unknown Mortal Orchestra
Oh,
a
that's
little
cool.
bit.
So that song and a few others, I did what we call tape sweetening, whereas I would take the song in its master phase, I would bounce it to my reel-to-reel machine, and then I would slow the tape speed down to find where I think the song feels the most
Mm.
lifelike, or the most, just it gives me a feeling. Now they would actually do this. I do this part of my job as well. I do this for a lot of artists. I'll do this what we call tape sweetening, whereas you'll find that space, and often that space can be between pitches, meaning it's not in our 440 that we've designated as our standard tuning. Instead, it's between, and sometimes that between, there's one that they call the love frequency, which is supposed to be a very specific, strange one. It's like it's not within our standard tuning. So that song I actually did slow down to find where it felt good. And so it also expanded. I sang that song falsetto, but it expanded it so that my falsetto sounds deeper and it sounds kind of a little bit more of a different, almost like a different person. So that's funny you said that. There certainly is some. I really love that. The original Unknown Mortal Orchestra album, the self-titled one, or the
Mm.
UMO one, that was a incredibly seminal album for me when I was at music school. This must have been 2013, and that was a really important record for me at the time. What he was doing at home, what he was doing for psychedelic music, it was very similar to what Kevin Parker was doing with psychedelic music. Not similar in sound, but similar in
DIY.
DIY, self, everything, letting it just kind of be. And those old Kevin Parker records really resonated with me. And funny enough, they both gravitated more towards uh, dancey electronic stuff, different ways. Obviously, they both left
Right.
a little. They're both still playing guitar, but they both certainly gravitated towards different worlds. Um,
Hmm.
Ironically, I sometimes make the analogy with Kevin Parker. It kind of reminds me of when like comedians start making a lot of money and start making jokes about like things that don't relate to people. Like you ever get in the limo and you feel like, it's like you ever go to the 1% club and find that the caviar is not, it's like that to me. It's like, not that they're making music, it's like super elite, but like it's just funny. It's like there's something to be said for like what huge success can do to your art. Clearly,
Yeah.
Kevin Parker moved into a direction where he wanted to play with like the big pop names and make club music. Ruben kept his rock roots a little more intact, but still moving.
Mm.
Obviously, he didn't get quite as big, but still moving in a way that you know is feels to me a little bit more um like, I don't know.
Different.
It feels farther away from
Yeah,
what I tend to gravitate towards with music that I like. Um,
I get that. And 11, I just put it's a sassy kind of cheeky rock tune because of the lyrics.
I don't even remember what that. What you remember what the song was called?
Oh, I'm sorry. Eyes Above.
Oh yeah, Eyes Above. Yeah, that was another one. Yeah, that one was one I was definitely going to include. And as the record became more and more, it just kind of fell farther back in the track. Not that I tend to front load. I really try to think about the flow of the record. But that was one that initially was going to be kind of earlier on, but it just the flow of it pushed it back. And then same thing with the last bunch. The last song was actually going to be the opener initially, but it was just so hectic and so it just and also some of the lyrics, like the first lyric, if you want to go back to the beginning, it felt like such a natural way to close the album. Just talking about, if you want to go back to the beginning, you can. We're at the end now, so it kind of felt a little on the nose.
Yeah, make a deal. Um, yeah, man, to end this, I'll just say like I broke this new rule that I was trying to do of like trying to keep these short and sweet because I feel like I've talked too much on some of them. But you're a great hang, great talk with you. I
Thanks,
guess
man.
my last question would be, um, do you have any plans to celebrate the release or are you gonna maybe have a show to kind of support?
I'm trying to do something in November. I run this kind of record. I don't want to call it a record label. I kind of call it a music group, which is it's me and three or four other groups. Um, One of my close friends, collaborators, Sam and Louise Sullivan, amazing brother sister duo in Philly. I recorded their last album, which is incredible. They kind of have a very Americana mix of genres. They're genius songwriters and musicians. I release music with them often. I work with another one of my close friends, uh, Emily, who's in this group called Star Moles, also incredible musician. I really only, you know, rep these people because I rep them because they're just incredible songwriters and musicians. But we have this little music group that we kind of work with, and we have within my record label called Historic New Jersey. And we're trying to put on in November uh, what I'm kind of calling like a Historic New Jersey review, which is going to be kind of all of us on stage from these three or four bands and all of us playing on each other's songs, kind of like the last waltz, where we're going to play songs from each other's catalogs. And that's going to be sort of a release show for me. That'll probably be in November in Philly. And if it goes well, I'll probably try to do it in other cities. But I think it'll be a great thing because it's very, it's like a review where it's like not like one band and another band. It's like we're all up there as one big band. We'll play songs from those catalogs, maybe some covers, some all kinds of stuff. So that's what I'll do in November as sort of a release show. As far as tomorrow, I have a lot of release days, right? Release day vibe. I always try to make something new on that day, and I always try to get some weird food. I saw this video of this person who went to Wendy's and they got like a bucket of chili, like a family bucket. It's like a popcorn bucket of chili. I might do that. I might go to Wendy's and get a bucket of chili and then dip like my burger in it and eat that. I might be really gluttonous. Talk about the five deadly sins. I might be very gluttonous tomorrow. I might do that.
Oh
But I'm
yeah.
trying to make a new song, and so I'll probably work on some new music tomorrow. And I'm feeling good about it. Sometimes release days can be kind of sad, like your birthday, where it's like it's like time's going on. maybe you don't get quite as many happy birthdays as you would have liked, or that kind of thing. Release days can be kind of sad. So not sad, but just like it's the next chapter, right? It's like another one down. So I tend to try to be productive and make something. So I'll probably make something and eat chili.
Hey,
But
well, enjoy that chili, man.
thanks, man. I appreciate it, and love to you and all your viewers out there. Appreciate the asking me to do this.
Yeah,
Sorry
thanks so
about
much for nah. Thanks so much for your time and stories, you know. Like I said earlier, I extend the invitation to come back for your future releases.
yeah, I mean, and feel free to hit up my friends. I post about them a lot. Emily from Star Molds and Sam and Louise Sullivan. I feel like they'd have some great, you ask great questions. I feel like they'd have a good time as well. So if you're looking for new people, feel free to hit them up. I'm sure they'd love to do this.
Oh, for sure. Hey man, enjoy the rest of your day and record deal with God. Excited for that release.
Thanks so much, my dude. I'll talk to you soon. All right.
Later.
Peace, buddy.